Okay, good morning and welcome to the Hawaii State Ethics Commission. It is May 21st, 2025, and the time is now 0900. Can we have a roll call?
Of course. So starting with Commissioner Tobias, are you present? And is there anyone else with you? Commissioner Tobias.
I think your screen is frozen.
Okay, there we go.
Thank you. But I'm here and alone in case you want to know.
Thank you. Commissioner Hong.
Present and alone.
Noting Commissioner Thielen and Commissioner Becker and Chair Fong are in the commission room, in the public commission room. I will also note the presence of commission staff. My name is Executive Director Harris, and I'm present with, I'm in the conference room. Joining us remotely is Compliance Director Chang, Enforcement Director Campbell, Staff Attorneys Neufer, Yamanuha, and Yi. We also have Computer Specialist Louis, Investigator Elster, and Analyst Gash with us. I'm going to read a couple of public notes, if you don't mind.
Do we need that if we don't have any public?
I'm sort of reading through it, seeing. I don't believe so, but if someone does come join, let's circle back and make sure we read that.
You have to just read that. Thank you. Thank you, Robert. Okay, first on the agenda, consideration and approval of the minutes of March 19th. Is that right?
Yes, because
March 19th, 2020. That's right. We didn't have one in April. March 19th, 2025. Any corrections? If not, I entertain a motion.
I didn't hear what you said. The whole thing was frozen.
Oh, I said we're going to approve the minutes of March 19th, 2025, because in April, we could not meet because we didn't pay our electric bill. So everything was turned off. So March 19th, 2025, I need there are no corrections. I need a motion to approve.
Motion to approve.
Second.
Moved by Commissioner Hong, seconded by Commissioner Tobias. Any discussion? If not, we do roll call.
Commissioner Tobias.
Aye.
Commissioner Hong.
Aye.
Commissioner Thielen.
Aye.
Commissioner Becker. Aye. Chair.
Chair votes aye, no objections, the motion's carried. Thank you. First on the next on the agenda is Director's Report, Education and Training.
I can turn that over to Benita.
Morning, Commissioners. In terms of the training program, we conducted a charter school training in, I think it was March, as part of their annual conference. They have an annual training for all their different charter schools and board members that covers not only ethics, but also procurement, human resources, and other kind of state fiscal kind of processes as well. And so we presented our component on the charter school training. And that was well attended virtually. We also did a mandatory live training recently for, I think about 15 tier 1 mandatory officials. So that was fairly well attended for a live training session. That was a number of new public board members were in attendance. As I mentioned before, our priority this year is to update our existing training module for the self-guided online, make sure that it's updated to reflect the changes in laws, things like the penalty amounts and nepotism law and other new matters that we have recently got adopted. So we'll be incorporating that as part of the content and curriculum. And also want to mention that Jennifer and Robert are also working with one of our vendors to develop short training video that will incorporate kind of real world scenarios, such as things like gifts or fair treatment that we can either use as standalone as part of training or feature on our website, kind of illustrate real world kind of issues that state employees and officials may face. In terms of other aspects of our compliance program, we have annual disclosures are due. So I think everybody, for the most part, is pretty current. If you need assistance, though, feel free to reach out to our staff. Um, Staff is really great. They're busy answering calls and assisting filers right now and assisting folks to make sure that they get their disclosures in on time. We also sent out requests to over 100 boards for their updated list of new board members. And so we'll be updating our system to reflect those folks who either left or have joined the board. So new board filers will be, they have until the end of July to file because they usually start July 1, but everybody else, the deadline is, I think this year it's June 2nd because the May 31st deadline lands on a weekend. So if there are any questions, I'll be glad to answer.
Are we still up to 90%?
I think we exceeded that.
Oh,
Like
very
91.
good. I won't propose another. I think
Thank
that's
you.
terrific, over 90. Second question I have, how often do we have to take this training?
It's once every 4 years. For ethics training, it's once every 4 years.
Yeah, ethics training.
Yeah. For the lobbyist
Or
one,
you-
it's once every 2 years because lobbying is on a biennial cycle. But for mandatory ethics, the statute is once every 4.
So we're all good on the commission by now then.
Mhm.
Good for another, well, how many years? Okay, any questions, commissioners? Next?
So I'm really excited to go into this next portion that I want to preview for Key before he jumps into it. If you remember, one of our target goals for this year was to improve upon our reporting of statistics, analytics, just to provide more public transparency about what we do. And so starting on page 16, and I want to steal his thunder, is a project that Key's been helping lead that I think he'll start talking about in a second.
Great. So I guess I'll start with page 15, which is the usual. And basically you can see 103 complaints in year to date, 108 complaints closed. So we're closing roughly what comes in. So that's standard, but on page 16 is the beginning of the new statistical reporting. And I did really want to thank Patrick, Jared, Caroline, Robert, and all of the attorneys because it was a lot of work getting this data, but definitely Patrick and Caroline and Jared had a large laboring oar. Looking at year over year, so in 2019, our complaints were 65, and then in 2024, our complaints were 424. We're on pace to hit 316 complaints for the year. But the purpose of this graph is just to show like there's a pretty dramatic escalation in the number of filing of complaints. And I think it's good that people feel comfortable to file complaints with our office, and then our office can serve as a resource for the community. Now on page 17, we've broken out the complaints by subject matter. So the largest subject matter is fair treatment, and conflicts of interest is a distant second. I think it makes sense that fair treatment is the largest subject matter. Those types of cases are dealing with abuse of power. It's a broader law. In terms of top right, you can see we're closing roughly what we open on a quarterly basis. They're not the same cases, but we're closing roughly the same number as we receive. And then on the bottom right, we've tallied up how the complaints are resolved. So the largest portion is no jurisdiction, and no jurisdiction literally means like it relates to a county employee or it doesn't state any sort of claim relating to the ethics code. And then lack of evidence is our office actually looked into it. We maybe interviewed some people and we've reviewed records, that sort of thing. Largely Jared is doing that. And after doing that sort of review, we agree that there's no evidence of an ethics violation. So 30 of those were closed in that fashion. The 9 referred to other agencies. Those are direct referrals. So that is us emailing a deputy director or an agency official saying, hey, we think you should look look into this matter. So we have relationships with agencies. Some agencies have auditors. We may be talking to their auditors about that sort of thing. One commission ruling, one settlement. So that's the complaint summary. And then we also did attorney of the day trends. So that's page 18. It's no surprise that gifts and fair treatment, again, are the leading ones, but we get a substantial number of questions about lobbying. And on the bottom over there, you can see written summaries issued. So the statute, our admin rules require us to issue a written summary if it's requested. And essentially, these are emails to the requester, sort of memorializing our advice. So we issued 70 emails out of 271 AODs for the first quarter, memorializing our advice. And then the guidances are longer form letters. So these are a couple pages. They may be going to the director of an agency, and the purpose of those is for dissemination to a broader audience. So some of these AODs did result in larger, more concrete formal guidance to the agency itself. But that's what we got. And if you have any questions, happy to answer them.
Well, first of all, congratulations. This is very revealing. And I think it's really helpful to show our transparency of what we're doing, and we're doing the right, we're doing a good job. I got a question before I, Commissioner Thielen. On 2025, you have 316 anticipated. How did you get that figure?
It's 79 times 4. So we had 79 for the first quarter. So we took the first quarter and then projected it out.
But that was a magic number.
No,
Okay,
no. Yeah.
Okay. Commissioner Thielen?
Thank you, Chair. Are the 7 guidances made public?
Generally, no. I mean, if they're in response to an AOD, which I believe most of these would be, then by admin rule, they would be confidential. They can be made public by the person who gets the guidance. So if we write a letter to a department director, that would be confidential until the department director circulates it to their employees. But we do not make that information public generally.
Thank you.
Any other questions by commissioners?
I can add that part of our ability to now share this kind of information is because we switched over to a new case and file management system, which allows us to better track all this kind of information and start providing it. We'll still maybe try to figure out the frequency at which we provide it, potentially quarterly or something along those lines, to be able to provide this. But this is the type of information that, going forward, we should be able to provide with less and less work because it's part of something already tracking. So I'm really happy. And again, as Key said, a lot of people deserve credit for this, but in particular, I think Patrick really deserves a lot of credit for allowing us to get this kind of information together.
This information, to whom does it go to?
So we will report it to you, and it will be a public document. And again, we'll have to figure out the frequency. I think at the very least, we'll do it quarterly, so you'll get this kind of information.
Yeah.
And then as part of our annual report that we're required to do statutorily, we can now start putting this kind of information into our statutorily required annual report.
Well, I'm thinking, can we give it, a copy to the CJ and the legislature and the governor and all that, these individuals? They can do what they want with it, but I think it kind of tells everybody, this is what we're doing, this is what we've done, and this is the result.
It's a good idea. I think we do produce our annual report, and we probably don't publicize it to the extent that we should. And it's a great idea. Maybe we should pre-printing copies and sending them to the people.
I don't care what to do with it, but at least, we'll keep them informed quarterly that, hey, we're doing our job. And we should get paid. No.
Duly noted.
See, that's laughing. But anyway, it's okay with everybody. We just send it to whom we think should know. As a matter of fact, I just saw the CJ at actually was a tribute And he mentioned that, about our doing our job, so I think you'd be interested.
Great.
Okay. Any other questions from the commissioners? Any questions from the staff? Okay, next.
So moving on to the quarterly reports, you can see this on page 19. So we're trying to track things again by quarterly basis. We're largely on budget and sort of on track to be slightly under budget going towards the end of Q4, end of this fiscal year, and returning a small sum back to the general fund. I don't know if I really need to highlight anything in particular on here, although I'm obviously happy to answer any questions folks might have.
Any questions by the commissioners?
Yes, Robert, what's temporary hazard pay?
So the state had a settlement with a number of the civil service represented employees where there was payment for their work during the COVID crisis. That was matched for all non-civil service. So there is a set amount of money that the legislature allocated for us to be able to pay employees if they met the criteria for working during COVID. It's based on the number of days that they worked or had to be in service. So that was paid out. As you can see, we probably got a fair amount more than we necessarily needed based on, how our employees met the criteria. And that will lapse back to the general fund.
Okay, any other questions for the commissioners? Okay, thanks.
Commissioner Becker, hopefully I said that well. If you have any follow-up questions, I think Commissioner Becker would be able to answer it better than I could.
That sounded right.
Okay.
Okay.
Okay. So moving along. So I did want to bring up the Kogel 47th Annual Conference, which is going to be December 7th through December 10th in Atlanta, Georgia. As a general reminder, it is a institution focused on not just ethics and lobbying, but it also focuses on campaign spending and a few other areas. And it is largely the state and counties of the United States, as well as the provinces of Canada, and a few other international members, including South Africa. It is probably the only conference that sort of is targeted to our issues and our focus. It is an opportunity to meet other commissioners, other staff, and to go through training on different topics of interest or highlights of what's going on at a national level. The conference is in Atlanta, and I want to flag that just looking at the logistics, it is not an easy flight to get there based on sort of the trying to get the lowest cost flight. We are generally going to be switching between two different airlines to get there with a layover or potentially doing a red eye to get there and come back. So I'm just flagging it's probably not the easiest conference that we've had, but I wanted to circle back in part to see which commissioners want to attend and try to lock that down, because if commissioners aren't attending, we potentially send some of the staff to go in their place, which I think is very valuable and useful for the staff. So I do know that Commissioner Hong has indicated he would not be able to go, and I believe Commissioner Thielen has indicated she would not go. Yeah. Commissioner Becker, you've indicated you would. Is that?
Oh, I guess I'll look at the flights.
Okay, all right. And Commissioner Fong, are you committed to going? Okay.
Yes, looking forward to seeing Atlanta, Georgia.
And Commissioner Tobias, I think you're still waiting to see if you'd be reappointed. Is that a fair statement?
Good luck.
Yes.
If you are reappointed, would you be interested in going?
Yes.
Okay.
Okay. So there are three of us commissioners. Well, that is three.
Okay.
Okay. That it?
That was it on that topic. And then I also want to recognize Miles Yamamoto, who is our administrative assistant. who has left our service after 2 years. He found an opportunity focused on education, which is something I think of as an interest of his, and focused on veteran education. So sort of hit 2 of his interest points. We are pleased that we've actually already hired his replacement. She's coming to us from the legislature, and hopefully we can introduce her next month when she comes on board. She has 20 years of experience at the legislature, working the office there, very skilled and very passionate about our issues. So I think we're gonna, not to say it's gonna be an upgrade, it is not by any means, but it is, we're gonna have a skill set coming into our office, so I think will be very valuable. And he and I have already promised to sit her down and try to figure out all the loopholes legislatures use to evade the ethics code and see what we can get from her. So again, just wanted to make sure we recognize Miles for his service, and certainly let the commission know that we've had a change over there.
Yeah, let me echo the thanks from the commission. I just saw Miles yesterday, day before yesterday. He's going to University of Maryland. Oh. And to do exactly what Robert said, and I wish him the best. I mean, Maryland? Yeah, that's his passion. So he's already left already.
Correct. His last day was last week, Thursday.
Yeah, well, if you do see him, say thank you very much. I thanked him the couple of days ago. So we're down to 3 guys in this office, right?
4.
Oh, 4, all right. Okay, I'm just, yeah, okay, just curious. I just saw all the faces. Anyway, we're looking forward to seeing or meeting with the new replacement. What's her name, by the way?
Her name is Melissa Vomveros. She
Sorry?
Melissa Vomveros. She was a staff employee for Senator Ihara for approximately 20 years.
Oh, wow.
20 years?
So
Wow.
really excited to have her come on board.
Is he hard?
I didn't know her, but I was in the house.
Oh, yeah.
We did have a little cross fertilization, but not a lot.
Yeah, well, is he hard or retiring? Is that?
No, I don't think so.
Oh, I
I think
just
he's
wondered.
been
maybe
there
that's the reason he's
forever.
leaving. Yeah, I know. I've known it for a long time. Okay, well, anyway, any questions? Okay, if not, let's see.
So the last thing, just briefly, I wanted to share, previously we circulated with you the brand and guideline. We're just trying to update this to use and just show the logos that we're using. Again, this is similar to what you've seen before, but sort of in different formats. So you can see this is a simplified version of the state seal with the Hawaii State Ethics Commission and the translation into Hawaiian. Similar, but just different formats for different purposes. And then sort of a badge format for situations where the badge formatting would be necessary.
And what does that mean on the bottom? Umau, yeah. Oh, that's our.
So that is
That I got.
Yeah,
How about the other one?
Life
So
of the
this-
land is perpetuated in righteousness.
Yeah, no, but this one over here.
So
Can you translate that, Robert? Underneath the Ethics Commission?
So this one actually was put together for us by a University of Hawaii Hilo Hawaiian Studies professor who actually helped the executive branch. One of the state laws that changed requires the executive branch to have a translation of their agency name when used on the state website or something else of that nature. We're not required to do that, but just to stay ahead of that requirement or to honor the spirit of it, we also did the translation and now have that.
So,
I did have a word for word translation. I don't have it on me right now, but this is supposed to be essentially a translation of the Hawaii State Ethics Commission.
so that mi kina ono ule kili Kelly is translated Hawaii State Ethics Commission.
I don't think it's a literal word for word, but it translates to what we do is oversee ethics.
So I can kind of chime in. So Komikina is English Hawaiianized version of commission, and then Ho'opono is to make right or
Right,
proper. Kule Kule is policy, and O Hawaii Moku'aina means across the state of Hawaii.
I know where she graduated
Thank you.
from. Come here,
No,
Yeah.
actually.
Chair, I was just wondering if we could get this staff overview section and the various provisions in a binder to always be here in this room for our meetings. And then we would have it handy to be able to refer to.
Sure.
I hate to just have this recycled. I think it's something we should have in our, like, the HRS volumes at the Capitol.
Okay.
Okay,
Thank you.
thank you. Anything else from the commissioners? And thank you for the translation. Did you learn all that from Kamehameha? Did they teach you that in Hawaiian? I mean,
She's actually a proud Roosevelt graduate.
oh, I
Yeah,
thought she was.
I'm a graduate of Roosevelt High School, but I'm
Oh,
making it my responsibility to learn a lot about Hawaiian culture, language, arts, and perpetuate that.
oh, oh, very impressive. I thought you graduated from Kamehameha. It was Roosevelt, huh? Okay, well, anyway, thank you for the translation. Now I can spot it out. Any other questions from the commissioners? Okay, if not, moving on. Next, discussion of commission jurisdiction complaint.
So 2 months ago, we had a member of the public raise an issue that they were concerned about, and there was some discussion within the commission about what is our jurisdiction, what matters do we take on. And so at the request of the commissioners, we prepared a very short overview and included attachments, as Commissioner Thielen noted, of our controlling statutes, a commissioner manual that was provided when you first started, but again, it's available as sort of a shortcut. And I'm going to go over a quick 4-slide overview. So we are the first entity, our first commission in the country that was established by Constitution. And there's direction in the Constitution, which again, we provided to you, but in a very, very short summary, we are required to uphold the high ethical standards in state government, which includes enforcing Chapter 84, which is the State Ethics Code, and Chapter 97, which is the Lobbyist Law, both of which were passed by the Hawaii State Legislature. So we have general jurisdiction over these matters, but the legislature gets to set what the specifics laws are going to be. The Constitution outlines specifically what is supposed to be in the State Ethics Code, but the specific language and whether they want to include more is up to the legislature. So for example, 2 years ago, they included nepotism, which had never been in the Ethics Code previously. We have jurisdiction over all state legislators and employees, and board and commission members. So commission enforcement jurisdiction applies when there's a specific allegation of a violation of the state ethics code. And so giving sort of typical circumstances where we would have jurisdiction or enforcement, which includes the conflicts of interest, fair treatment or favoritism, gifts, nepotism, post-employment restrictions, or lobbyist law violations. That's not all inclusive, but this is a list of sort of typical violation situations where we would be engaged. So types of cases would include misuse of state resources for personal gain, acceptance of a prohibited gift from a lobbyist or contractor, or taking official action to benefit a private financial interest. Notably, what's not included in here would include policy decisions, where maybe there's a disagreement over those policy decisions, incompetence, negligence, those types of matters we may look at and say, well, that was just a bad situation, but we don't necessarily have jurisdiction over that decision, why that decision was made. And there's usually other remedies. If someone disagrees with an agency decision, for example, typically there is an administrative law remedy. They can go to court and challenge the basis for that decision. So again, frequently we will have people file complaints with us disagreeing with something an agency did, or even branding it as a stupid decision, we may very well agree, but we will frequently have to reject it for lack of jurisdiction unless we can tie it to a specific provision of the ethics code or the lobbyist law. So again, I'm sort of repeating that. On where we lack jurisdiction is poor management or policy decisions, incompetence or inefficiency, political disputes or disagreements, or stuff outside the state jurisdiction. County issues. We get a lot of people who look up ethics, find our contact information, file a complaint with us about their landlord, housing administrator, SNAP decisions, essentially things that are of concern. And we try as best we can to try to put them in the right place, redirect them. And we take a lot of time doing that because we think it's important. If someone comes to us, they're usually very frustrated, upset, angry, think government's failing them, and we're trying to be as helpful as we can. But generally speaking, we can't do enforcement. So again, just generally, what do? Educate employees and officials, provide binding guidance and advisory opinions, and enforce the ethics code or lobbyist law when violations occur. And I would stress, just because of my experience going to Moldova as a invitee of the US government to attend, one of the questions they asked us based on their experience was, what are the restrictions on the Hawaii State Ethics Commission? Who stops us from overstepping our boundaries? And it brought home the importance of us knowing where our limits are and not trying to overstep or overreach, because then again, we're sort of undermining the concept of the Ethics Commission in general. Like, we have to understand we have a lot of power in sort of a discrete, specific area, and we can't overextend that too far. Any questions?
No, good overview. Of course, the courts can always oversee us. I got one question. If a citizen, and I've heard this so many times, whatever the incident may be, and I says, I think that, no, I said, that's not in our jurisdiction. It's a county's jurisdiction. Do we ever, if they call and say, and it's a county's jurisdiction, do we refer them to that county jurisdiction, or give them a telephone number and say, hey, call them?
We spend a lot of time doing that. Yes, absolutely. And and Jared have taken over a lot of the brunt of that. So you saw we're averaging somewhere in the magnitude of 400 to 500 complaints. We also get probably in a magnitude of 60 to 80 anti-fraud matters. And a lot of, at least half of those are situations where we're trying to refer people in the right direction.
Good.
And so it is a fair amount of our time goes into that, but we think it's important.
Good, glad. Because every time I say I'm in the State Ethics Commission, then they come up with some kind of issue that really is like, wait a minute, hold on, it's not our jurisdiction. Any other questions from the commissioners? Staff? Okay, next.
Second.
Yeah. Let's see.
So I think that is the wrap up of item number 3.
Yeah.
We can jump to item number 4.
Okay.
So item number 4 is discussion of media reports concerning ethics for the Ethics Commission since the last meeting. One that we did want to highlight is that I appeared along with a representative for Common Cause, along with Professor Colin Moore, and along with representative of the League of Women Voters to discuss ethics bills and campaign spending bills before the legislature, as that appeared on PBS Insights, and that's available online if anybody wishes to watch it. I think it was a good discussion. I think it was an opportunity for us to discuss a number of the laws or bills that we were helping get through. And I think it was one of the shining highlights of the session, in a session where many people are sort of pointing to the lack of activity or engagement in good governance stuff in general. I apologize, I did not write down a list of the various media reports that have come up in the past 2 months. However, again, this is just an opportunity for commissioners to address something they may have seen or brought up or a member of the public wants to bring up or discuss. If anything. We don't have to. This is just a standing item.
That it?
That's it.
Any questions, commissioners? Staff? Okay, next, item 5.
So if Jennifer, are you able to take
Sure.
on this?
Sure. So the judicial rules were finalized in March, and this is something that we had. It's sort of the culmination of a conversation that we started with the judicial staff at the request of Commissioner Fong, Chair Fong, and kind of broadened out. End of the day, they adopted 2 important rule changes. They brought on an administrator position for the Commission for Judicial Conduct, which oversees the judiciary as far as ethics pertaining to them. And they also updated the disclosure rules about gifts so that judges now disclose gifts that are reimbursements or loans or that kind of thing. And that brings them into alignment with our disclosure laws. They didn't take all of our suggestions. We the way it is now, the administrator will be appointed by the Supreme Court. We being that the administrator also oversees the Supreme Court, we had suggested that perhaps the Commission on Judicial Conduct itself, the commissioners, might want to appoint the administrator. That's not adopted at this time. And we also thought of certain just ethical other standards, such as in the event that a judge may want to apply for the administrator position, maybe enact a 12-month cooling off period like we have for post-employment. That wasn't adopted at this time.
I just have one concern. I mean, I appreciate the fact that the judiciary is doing something to, I guess, take care of these ethic issues. But, if they're going to appoint the administrator, which is a one person rather, is that kind of, how would you say, it's like you're going to appoint somebody who's going to oversee you, and if you don't like what he does or she does, you're fired.
Well, to be clear, the administrator will work with the Commission on Judicial Conduct, and they, as a group, oversee the judiciary. So those are independent, non-judges, lawyers, and other professionals. So the administrator will work with them, similar to how Executive Director Harris works with the Commission on Ethics.
But wouldn't the administrator who is hired by the CJ and the judiciary be a little reluctant to bring any ethical issues against the judges who are paying his salary?
I think, I think it is worth exploring that topic. We will likely have a new CJ in the near future, just based on the mandatory retirement requirement. So I think the way we're viewing this is that we have a lot of positive changes. Judges and justices are going to have to report gifts in a way that is more in alignment with state employees, and we haven't seen previously. And we now have a professional staff here to talk to. And there's nothing stopping us from bringing this topic back up again with a new CJ and saying, hey, you guys have made a lot of good steps. Maybe we should consider some more.
Don't get me wrong, this is the first step, but let's see what happens. Anyway, I made my point. We'll see what happens if, hopefully this works. I'm just glad that the judiciary is receptive in regards to our oversight, as they call it. And it's good to hear that the administrator would be working with us Is that correct? Jennifer?
I wouldn't
Yes,
say they're working directly with the Ethics Commission, but just as a sister agency, similar to how the Campaign Spending Commission um, works with us and other agencies, they'll be working together as sister state agencies.
we still don't have oversight over them, do we?
Wouldn't think
No,
so.
not for the ethics rules, but again, part of our conversation was to try to bring their ethics standards and ours into alignment, and we succeeded with doing that on the gift disclosure level. And it seems that they will now, be appointing administrator. Hopefully, that will lead to staff and a more robust ability for their Commission on Judicial Conduct to act.
Okay, so basically, stay tuned. Commissioner Tobias, you had something?
No.
Oh, I thought you had. Any questions for the commissioner? Staff? Thank you, Jennifer. Thanks.
Again, I would like to thank the chair also for the effort in instigating that conversation with the judiciary. And I think that was a significant step, and I think we should be proud of both the judiciary for listening, but proud of our efforts to help instigate the conversation. I think it will be a meaningful change. And just by the fact that they now have professional staff, we have someone to reach out to and to talk to on a more active basis and hopefully cooperate with each other going forward. So I think it's all good, positive steps. The next thing is to talk about the 2025 conclusion of the legislative session. We had a very successful year, and I'm a bit worried that we're setting a high bar with 2 years of getting most of our bills, or in this case, this year, all of our bills passed, at least through the legislature. And I want to emphasize, it's not always going to be this easy. But again, I think we can be relatively proud that we proposed ideas that the legislature trusted us to run with, and that didn't really raise a lot of significant opposition, such that we were able to carry them through the legislative session. So obviously, we had our budget passed, which is wonderful. But maybe more specifically focused on what impacts the public at large. We had SB 289, which has now become an act, which allows us to essentially issue what I call akin to a parking ticket. So if we see a violation where the facts and the law really aren't too much in dispute, this commission just can go ahead and issue a proposed order with a proposed fine. The individual can either pay it, or if they want, they can come back and contest it. But it kind of simplifies and speeds up the process, hopefully for everyone. And I think it's just a good, a tool in our tool chest to make us more efficient and effective.
Good.
HB 412, which is the lobbyist law, expands the definition of lobbying to include sort of pre-procurement discussions with high-level executive officers. So if somebody comes along and basically starts trying to propose a contract or the sale of something to the state, it is possible now that they're going to have to register as a lobbyist, and that there would be some transparency around those conversations. This is a step that many other states have done, so we're sort of playing catch up here, but it is a pretty seismic change in the lobbying laws, and the fact that it now includes executive officers in a way that previously were not included. And so we are going to have, I think, a fair amount of work ahead of us in establishing guidelines and rules around this change, and trying to make sure that we are fulfilling the spirit and intent of the law in a way that's effective without getting too problematic with just general conversation with the executive officers. So this was a big change. Let me pause there for a second. Any questions on that one?
Any questions, Commissioner, so far?
Okay, so that bill is.
Oh, wait, there's a question by Commissioner Tobias.
I know you're talking about 412, but I was wondering, by the same token, for lobbyists, I know that they can't do anything during a legislative session, But what happens after the session? Can they contact these people? Can they do anything or say anything or offer anything?
So there is a campaign restriction which prohibits lobbyists from making campaign contributions or promises to make a campaign contribution during the legislative session, 5 days before and 5 days after. Once the session's over, then arguably they have a First Amendment right to make a campaign contribution. And so there is no restriction sort of post-session. But the intent is to try to prevent the actuality of a quid pro quo, vote this way and I'll give you a campaign contribution, or the appearance of that quid pro quo. And once the session's over, then, presumptively special interests can support candidates that they like and oppose candidates they don't. And that's, again, considered a constitutional right, which is a whole different discussion, which we don't necessarily need to have here. But under the HB 412, the people who are classified as a lobbyist potentially expand. And so that restriction on who can donate or not during the legislative session expands as well.
Just curious.
Yep.
Thank you.
Okay, Commissioner Thielen?
Chair, thank you. The kind of building upon that question, I wanted to see where our pay-to-play issue is, because it fell flat in its face. So if we, I'm not quite sure how we do that. I mean, there's a little bit of an overlap with the with another commission, but yet it's something that is very ethical in nature. So where do we go from here on that? It didn't make it through, and the pay-to-play is alive and well, and that's the brown bag events are not restricted. And I think that's really a disgrace.
That's a great question, Commissioner. If you don't mind, just give me a few seconds to maybe think of an adequate response. Do you mind if I finish up the list of bills that passed and we can address that at the end?
Because I'm unhappy with the omission of a very key measure that we should have been able to get through.
Yeah.
In the list you're addressing.
Sure. So HB 413, we had concurrent jurisdiction over lobbyist contributions to candidates with the Campaign Spending Commission. And that can prove challenging if they have a different interpretation than we do. And so this was largely an administrative bill, but it specifically states that we have jurisdiction over the lobbyists making contributions, and the Campaign Spending Commission has jurisdiction over the candidates and tries to draw that line pretty clearly. And so, essentially we took over more control over this than maybe we've had in the past, and we will have to be vigilant in trying to catch those who are making campaign contributions permissibly and enforce that. And it'll be 100% our ruling on that going forward. SB 1545, which is a bill that we did not introduce. However, we did offer support for, is a bill that would have extended the ethics code to members of the legislature over nepotism. It did make it fairly far, but it did eventually get deferred in the House, and it's going to sit there. I anticipate this bill will probably have trouble for the foreseeable future because the House just believes jurisdictionally they should have control over their own rules of conduct, and that they think that it's better that this is done as a House rule or a Senate rule, which is in place. So my expectation is, this type of bill may get introduced again, but it probably won't pass for the foreseeable future, unless there is an example of nepotism that the legislature doesn't do anything about. Then, this is a ripe discussion. Shifting to Commissioner Thielen's question, which is the pay-to-pay for the public listening specifically, there were bills to prohibit family members of contractors or close high-level employees from making campaign contributions in general. It also extended to people receiving grants and aid from the legislature. That bill has been substantively publicized what happened to it. It made it all the way to conference committee. It appeared that the judiciary chairs were in support of it. And it appears that Senate and House leadership stepped in and the bill died at the last second. I fully anticipate with two judiciary chairs in agreement that it will come back again next year. And that there will continue to be a lot of pressure to pass it. We did not play a lead role, in part because this was a campaign spending commission bill. And they have some specific ideas that we didn't necessarily want to be in disagreement with. But we did support the bill, sort of as a secondary or tertiary player. I think we do have time to think about how to proceed forward with it for next year. I'm reluctant necessarily to be the lead on the bill, because again, if they have different opinions, I don't really want our two commissions to be in conflict with one another. And it really is probably more strictly their jurisdiction than it is ours. However, I think it is worthwhile to think about ways we can make sure this actually passes, whereas for the past 4 years, it hasn't passed.
Yeah, go ahead.
Okay, commissioners, I think this is time that we do take the lead on this measure. Because otherwise what we're doing is we're just kicking the football down the field each session. And the last time it was really clear that leadership did not want that measure to pass for good reason. And pay to play is unethical. So they were stopping the bill from becoming law. I think we ought to take a look at how to devise a measure that we could introduce through the leadership in both houses, which do the formal introduction, but a measure that our ethics commission supports to stop the pay to play. And even if we are going to be kind of tandem with campaign spending commission, if they take the different approach and we take a different approach, I don't see that that's harmful. I see that it's really getting the message out there. It's unethical. You had that brown paper bags being handed to people.
Let me ask you, since you're to proceed and have us meaning the ethics commission take the lead, do you want to make a motion on that and then, really direct our staff to do that for next year?
If you feel that's appropriate,
It's,
I'm not saying to take the lead, I'm saying to introduce a bill. Which is the lead campaign spending commission with their idea or us with our idea. It doesn't matter, but I feel that we should move ahead with a pay to play. Let's do it this way, that we move ahead with pay to play legislation for the coming session. And that gives staff plenty of time to review this issue nationally. And there were some states that we came up with ideas that might be adaptable for us. But yes, to move ahead with pay to play legislation.
can I ask the other commissioners what their thoughts are on
Chair.
what? Yes.
Chair, I think just for a sunshine agenda perspective, we probably need to put this on the agenda for discussion. And so I would probably suggest that we defer a conversation onto it until next month and we can put it on the agenda for discussion.
Okay.
I just don't want us to violate sunshine agenda
No,
by kind of
That's,
going off.
that's a very good point.
Okay,
Yeah,
but
we do. Yeah.
let's at least say that we want to, out of the basis of this meeting, we want to have the staff begin to look at this. I don't want to lose a whole month. And that's pushing the football down the field too.
Why don't we do this, unless there's an objection by other commissioners, that we suggest that the staff explore what Commissioner Thielen just proposed, then put it on the agenda for next month.
For official action.
Yeah, if any. Is that okay?
We can certainly do that, and I'd probably ask the Deputy Attorney General if we have constitutional authority to have any jurisdiction over campaign contributors. I think what was discussed last year is a little bit different, which is to prohibit state employees from making campaign contributions. We do have jurisdiction over state employees. And that's something we can revisit. I had serious reservations about it because I think it's probably not the source of problems necessarily if state employees are involved. And it's probably going to have a lot of pushback from general, HGA and others of saying you're taking away First Amendment rights of state employees. But we can certainly put both whether or not we could have jurisdiction or we can introduce a bill, whether we have constitutional capability of doing that, and what would that look like, discussion next month, and maybe the alternative discussion we had last year about prohibiting state employees from being involved in campaigns.
Well, maybe the point is to look at the legislators that we do have jurisdiction over and look at what is acceptable or ethical for a legislator, and what is unethical. And reaching out, taking a bag full of cash has got to be unethical. And there's got to be a way that we can work on that from an ethics perspective.
So just to be clear, plainly, taking money personally is an ethics violation as well as a criminal violation. There's no if, ands, or buts about that. It was back then, it is today, and we've actually passed a lot of laws that made that more prohibited. What's being discussed specifically here is campaign contributions. That is publicly done, legally done today, and trying to restrict who can make those campaign contributions.
Yeah.
And that is the jurisdiction of the Campaign Spending Commission. And for us to come in and say, we think it should be this way, does raise issues whether or not we have the jurisdiction to even be involved in that conversation.
Well, that's why I think maybe staff needs to take a look at it, Chair, to see if they can come up with a creative way in which we can be the lead on one idea of going through, because it's pretty clear the others just aren't making it.
Okay. Let me make sure we understand this. Pursuant to what Commissioner Thielen is suggesting, we're actually, unless there are any objections by the commissioners, asking the staff to research exactly what Commissioner Thielen said about campaign contributions, not just for the state employees, and see whether I think two of these things, do we have jurisdiction? And number two, is it feasible if we do? And what should we do if we can? Is that pretty much it?
Thank you, Chair.
Yeah, is that okay?
Yes, absolutely.
Any comments from the, yes, I see a hand, that's Commissioner Tobias.
Just one quick thing, just be sure that we know where the other people who are part of this stand, like the campaign finance committee, where do they stand and what are their thoughts before we go kind of head to head? I know it sounds really good as we talk about it, but where are the other partners in this and what are their proposals for next year?
You're talking about the Campaign Spending Commission.
Yes.
Okay. Yes. Okay. I agree. That's true. Commissioner Hong, any comments? Commissioner?
No, I'm fine.
Okay. I don't think we need a motion. Okay.
I don't think we need a motion.
Yeah.
We're just.
I think if it's okay, we'll just give that as a.
Theoretically,
Is
absolutely.
that a good word?
No, absolutely. Setting an agenda item for next month is no problem, and we always will take any input you guys have for what the agenda item
Good.
should be. You guys are in control of that.
Good. Yeah.
And then just any substantive discussion that we come out with, a motion or something, and just make sure it's noticed.
And I want to thank you
Then,
for reminding
Chair,
us about,
The other thing, I think, just like we have the media on it as a regular agenda item, I think we should have legislation on as a regular agenda item, so we don't get blocked up for a whole month, and have it defined broadly enough that it would include any question about pay-to-play discussion and action.
Well, I think we can just keep that legislative matters, that as a topic. Is that what you're talking about?
Yeah, always to have it on the agenda like we have media. I would say that the legislation deserves equal attention to media, and we haven't been doing that.
In addition to that, it could be blank if we don't have anything.
It's fine. I think just as long as the commissioners are aware that also allows members of the public to raise topics or legislation as well. And sometimes that can lead us
Well, that's fine.
pretty far astray.
That's fine.
Yeah. And it'll give the, and actually, if we put this matter on the agenda, we may get some responses from the public. So we'll see what they say. And then again, if we can't do it, we can't. If we can, good, then what can we do? Is that okay? Any other comments from the commissioners? Help from the staff, any comments from the staff? Okay, we'll move forward. I have a question in Senate Bill 1545. I know who introduced it on the Senate side. I'm the chair of the neighborhood board, so I asked the person who introduced it. The Senate had no problem with the nepotism law. And basically, she said that the House, you have to have two committees to review that. And one committee said, fine. The chair just said, we're not going to hear it, which means that it's going to die. So my question is, all right, now they, as Robert said, you know, the legislature, at least the House part, wants to do their own, well, I guess, policing of ethics. My question is this, that's fine. I mean, I'm not gonna buck a horse, as they say. But if we find, this is more of a legal question, if we find that one of the legislators, I don't care which, in a House or Senate, violated the nepotism law, does more so the House, if there's an exception, can we still, charge them with a violation of the nepotism law?
No, because members of the legislature, we do not have jurisdiction over for nepotism. We would refer it to either the House or Senate for their action because they both have rules on it and they have procedures on how to investigate and handle it. Potentially nepotism can still be a fair treatment violation. So there's possibility we have jurisdiction over that if they sort of gave unwarranted favor benefit to a family member. That's arguably also still something we could. We've always had difficulty historically forcing that because it's hard to prove. But short of that, we would refer it to the House or Senate for them to take action.
If this is introduced again next year, is there a recommendation in regards to our offering testimony in the committee hearings in support of the nepotism law for the legislature?
So we did do that this year, where we made points indicating that it would be helpful to create a standardized mechanism for all legislators' employees. For example, we pointed to the fact that we have a good cause exception process. That, if somebody wants to find out if someone got a good cause exception, having it in one spot is easy. Uniformity, there was a lot of reasons why having us have jurisdiction over this made sense, and we submitted that. And that's in part why it passed the first House committee. Again, it was not heard by the second House committee. Had a conversation with the chair specifically on this bill. And again, the answer was philosophically, the belief is the House should have control over the conduct of its own members. And constitutionally, they do have language saying that. So they believe that they should have jurisdiction over the nepotism laws and not have it be given to us.
So we did submit testimony and went to both committees, and the chair of one says, no, it's our jurisdiction.
Correct. It was a very friendly conversation, to be clear. But it's just a philosophical difference that I don't think we're going to change anytime soon.
Any comments by the commissioners? You know what we're talking about, right? Well, we'll see what happens. It's not our bill. I know who introduced it, and that senator was very disappointed about, the House. But anyway, if nothing else, let's move on. Oh my gosh. Item number 7. Akana.
So no update on this matter.
How long has it been since it's been up to the Supreme Court and they're getting a new CJ?
I'm trying to look at, so it went up, I believe in, I couldn't tell you the exact date. We'd have to look that up. But it's been approximately a year or so, I think, since the oral argument.
Okay, stay tuned. Hopefully it'll be over before my tenure is finished. I think everybody knows I started off, I don't know how many, 6 years ago, and that's the first out of the commission's history. I think I was told that there were only 3 contested cases out of 50 years, and this was one of them. And that was 6 years ago. I think 6, I think. So we'll see what happens. It'll be interesting.
Oh.
Anybody have anything? Any commissioners have anything else? Do we have anything else? Hey, commissioners, anything that you want to add? Staff? Okay, if not, I'll entertain a motion to adjourn.
I move.
Moved by Commissioner
Second.
Thielen, second by Commissioner Tobias. All in favor, we need a roll call.
Yes, please. Commissioner Tobias,
Aye.
Commissioner Hong,
Aye.
Commissioner Thielen,
I.
Commissioner Becker,
Aye.
Chair.
Chair votes aye, and the motion is carried. It is now 10:06. You want a 10-minute or 5-minute